God bless everyone who is not on my way. If he cross on my way, then we're gonna put his head like a bride's head. But in the second round, I take his head off.
This is Johnny with TigerBomb MMA, and today I'm going to go over UFC 308, Topuria versus Holloway, giving you my thoughts and predictions on the entire 14-bout card taking place in Abu Dhabi, UAE. It's a Halloween season. I always get into the Halloween season. I tend to dress up. It's going to try to be a tradition going forward. Like for the last few years, I dressed up as like notable famous people. I dressed up as like Johnny Depp. Very particularly Johnny Depp after he got his ass whipped by Amber Heard. Huge success down in Louisiana when I went down to New Orleans. The time before that, I was dressed as Bono. Everyone hated that one. People fucking hated Bono. But for this year, I decided I wanted to be a little bit more MMA oriented, so I dressed up as, you guessed it, Brian Ortega's career at featherweight. It's not going well. But yeah, I'm going to give you my quick thoughts on this. And before I do that, I want to give you my quick thoughts on the previous week's card, which would have been Ferreira versus Hernandez. Overall, out of the 11 bouts, I only predicted 10, the last-minute replacement of Smotherman and Hadley. I ended up betting Smotherman. He was like plus 300. Jake Hadley, here's the thing. The fact that Jake Hadley was like minus 600 to me was like, I need a bet against that. But yeah, I didn't do too bad. Went 7 out of the 10. If you want to count Smotherman, I went 8 out of 11. But first fight of the night. Now, I'm going to break these down real quick because I want to get this fucking shit off my face. Austin Lane defeats Robles Despain. Despain absolutely pissed me off, right? I thought a couple things. He was going to keep it on the feet long enough to knock him out. And I, secondly, didn't expect him to fall over and give up takedowns that easily. So the truth is, Despain, his takedown defense improved enough to be able to defend Austin Lane. The issue was, round number 1, he threw a kick, I believe. He fell over. Austin Lane got on top of him. His entire cardio and takedown defense just went down the drain. I think that had he not been a fucking moron, he would have beaten Lane. As for Lane, it was the last fight of his contract. You really think they're going to bring you back after that performance? You couldn't do anything to a guy who had nothing off of his back. Melissa Martinez defeats Alice Ardeleon. I actually bet Melissa Martinez. I thought she was not necessarily winning. Let me explain this fight very briefly. There's a difference between winning a fight and winning the contest. Melissa Martinez won the contest, and when you keep in mind that these are mostly boxing judges, and Ardeleon was just bum rushing and really not landing cleanly, she was throwing more output, but Melissa Martinez, every 11 punches that missed for Ardeleon, Melissa landed 1, and I agree, it's not the best way to judge a fight, but with these boxing-oriented judges, they're going to give it to the Mexican with pretty shitty boxing in Martinez. She did land some good kicks here or there. I thought she did enough to solidify the rounds. Overall, not a great showing from either girl, especially Martinez. I thought Martinez was not active enough, and it was pissing me off, but elusivity got her the win. Elise Reed defeats Jessica Penne. Not much to say there. I thought Penne was going to actually get knocked out. She put up a decent amount of fight against Elise Reed. Elise Reed just battered her after she figured out how to stuff the takedowns. Jocelyn Edwards destroyed Tamaris Vidal pretty easily with the weight miss. It was even more evident she was going to whip her ass. Not much to say there. She did get the rear naked choke. I thought when she was landing on her on the feet, she was connecting very, very cleanly. John Matsumoto versus Brad Katona, for me, probably fight of the night. I was highly impressed with Matsumoto. He beat the shit out of Katona, and here's the thing about fighting Katona. He implements that style, that smothering style that kind of defeats you without really defeating you, just kind of holding you against the cage, limiting your offense. Matsumoto had none of that shit. He kept throwing. There were moments there where Katona was landing on Matsumoto, but it didn't really affect him, didn't seem to bother him much. Highly impressed by Matsumoto. And I think Brad Katona, when he fights like that, it makes people respect him more. Like, he went out there, he put it on the line. He was landing cleanly. He did try to do that little wall install bullshit, but Matsumoto wouldn't allow that, which kind of forced Katona to fight like a dog. Fun for everyone. I really like this fight. Almabayev, horrible fight. I mean, the moment he said, fuck it, I'm going to go after Nicolau, he dropped him. Nicolau had a very good guillotine in the second round. I mean, it was so much of a shitty, boring fight that those two moments were the most impactful. The drop in the third round and the near guillotine in the second, that Ambayev, tight or not, he still got out of it, and there was still enough time for him to potentially win the round, because it wasn't that, oh my God, it's just one fucking moment. He just didn't do anything. And, credit to both men. They tried to outpussy each other, and I guess Nicolau lost that one. So moving on here, Darren Elkins defeats Pineda. They got fight of the night. It was fun. Pineda, it's almost like he refuses to win via scorecards. There were moments there that he definitely could have done damage and won the rounds, but he kept going for your guillotine, and I don't necessarily feel upset about it, him knowing that that was going to be his last fight. I guess he wanted another submission to make it official that he's got a 100% finish rate. Fucking stupid, but me as a bettor, even more stupid. I bet him, it is what it is. Cameron Smotherman made my money back on Pineda. He looked clean. Here's the thing I've been saying about Smotherman. He's very good. I think that last loss that he had in the Contender Series to Grigoru was a bit of a fluke, and we see what Smotherman can do. He does train in Texas. He trains with Adrian Yanez, and he beat the shit out of Jake Hadley. Charles Johnson allegedly beat Sumadarji. There was a contested round number one. I thought Charles did enough at the end of the round to really solidify that. Then he definitely, round number two, he won that one. Sumadarji won round number three. 2-1 for Charles Johnson. It was what it was. Not a great fight, but good enough. I should also mention I was at a fucking haunted hayrack ride this whole time, ignoring everything around me. Motherfuckers with chainsaws. And I'm like, leave me alone. I'm trying to see Rob Font cuck Kyler Phillips here, which it 100% was. Kyler Phillips, like, what is it with this guy? Like, we know about his gas tank, but I really thought he was going to get over that. And Rob Font can't stuff takedowns. He was able to get back up. Kyler, I think he's a perennial, like, top 15. It's like a what could have been. Rob Font turned back the page a little bit. He was training with Faraz Sahabi. Good instructions from Faraz Sahabi. Rob Font just put it on. Kyler Phillips tired him out, and then he just won that decision. Props to him. And Anthony Hernandez, I actually bet Pereira. I bet them both, but ultimately lost money on this fight because I bet Pereira by knockout. In the first minute, he kicks him hard. He kicks him fucking hard to nearly finish him, and then he just stopped fighting. And then Hernandez was just like, well, this is easy. I withstood the barrage, and I figured he would. I figured he would more than likely withstand that and then put the pressure on him. He beat the fucking shit out of Pereira like I've never seen it happen, and then he finished him in the fifth round. Crazy overall main event, but it was just a one-way street of domination, and literally his cornerman in Pereira's side was like, I just need one strike. He couldn't even give him that. So now we know, and that's the thing, it was very much so how we expected it. If Pereira finishes him early, it's going to be early, and he nearly did, and then Hernandez took over, whipped his ass. So props whoever took money on Hernandez. He made it look a little too damn easy. So yeah, let's move on to the official fight card here, which would be the UFC 308, Topuria versus Holloway. Going to be a great card. And just to kind of give a disclaimer, there's going to be multiple fights here that by default you have to take the Muslim fighter, because there ain't no way they're going to give it to the other guy. And it's going to take a finish from the other fighter to completely turn the tides and make sure that this guy doesn't win. And there's going to be a couple like that. And really, keep in mind, the bare minimum needs to be done by these fighters for them to get the decision. There's going to be some anomalies there with certain judges, but more often than not, they're going to give them the nod. Well, starting off with the first fight of the night, Bruno Silva, Blindado Silva. Well, no, let me rephrase it. Bruno Blindado Silva versus Ismail Naurdiev. Let me just get this out of the way. Naurdiev is making his second appearance, I believe his second, because he's made a couple catchweight appearances. Back into the UFC, minus 125. I think this guy fucking sucks. I don't think he belongs in the UFC. Bruno Silva, for all the negative behind him, like he is just getting schooled by guys he should not be getting schooled by. He still has enough talent, but he's plus 105. My issue here is there's a near 10-year age gap. The issue with Naurdiev, I think he's a decent enough striker, but I literally just saw a reject from the Contender Series put his lights out after he hurt him. And who was that? That was Vadim Kuntsev. Or is it Kutsi? Kutsi, not Kunsi, Kutsi. It's fun to say, Kunsi, Kutsi. But Naurdiev, I don't know why he's in the UFC. I don't know. Blendado, as we know, he got his eyes poked out by Chris Weidman in his last fight, and that to me 100% should have been overturned. Like, he poked him a numerous amount of times. But if Rumble Johnson can't get that overturned, even in death, they're not going to do that shit for Bruno Silva here. But Bruno, he's got the Blendado blitz. He's got the black belt in jiu-jitsu, the black belt in Muay Thai. He's a great fighter, but to me, he's just past his prime, and it really pains me to say that I got to go with Naurdiev here to more than likely get this one by a knockout. And to me, this is a very close fight. I would stay away from it. It's just so close that I can even assume that it might not even go. It might not even finish. I mean, it could go to a decision, which pisses me off because of these gloves right here. These new UFC gloves, they fucking suck. Like, I bought one to have Michael Chandler sign it. Even the signature, when you're signing it, because it's so, like, texturized, it doesn't look great. And they just don't feel good, man. I feel like there's been a lot of issues with not getting knockouts. And this might be another one of those situations here where Naurdiev just kind of does a little bit more. He's the more young fighter. He's got the youth on his side. His age is lesser than Silva. That's really all I can go with here. I think Silva can definitely get a knockout. He is the more durable of the two, I believe. But even Weidman kind of hurt Bruno Silva. So my assessment on this is just kind of staying away from it. It is kind of like a trap fight. Like, either way you pick it, it's probably not going to go your way. I will reluctantly go with Naurdiev, not because I think he's the better fighter. I do think Bruno's the better fighter, but Father Time has just been running this guy through the coals. And just some of the body language, the speed isn't really there anymore. And it just kind of depresses me. So I got to go with, unfortunately, Naurdiev to get another UFC win here and stay alive. Just youthful is the only way I got to go about it. So next bout, Ibo Aslan, which is the last Ottoman versus the Lion. Rafael Cerqueira. Let's just call him Rafael for now. So Rafael here, 11-0, undefeated champion. He's 35 years old, 34 in 7 months, plus 105. And he does train with, like, Eduardo Mora and the God King Jailton Almeida. But I'm not impressed by this guy. I'm not impressed by either of these men. Ibo Aslan, I remember his finish of the Pleasure Man to be a little bit more impressive than it was. But to me, I thought he was losing that fight. And he doesn't move his head. He does train at Extreme Couture. He is minus 125. The dude is definitely all power, not really much technique. Doesn't really throw jabs. Doesn't move his head. I think his takedown defense has improved. Just all power. And he has gotten knockouts in the third round. Just recently he did. And one thing I got to mention, he did fight that Valentin, what was his name? Valentin, the dude who just fought in the tough finale. Valentin, what the fuck is his name? Robert Valentin. And I saw that fight. It used to be free, and now it's behind a fucking paywall. But he did finish him in the third round there, and he looked decent there. To me, this is a very bad matchup for both men. I think Rafael, we don't know much about him. This guy is a Triple B, a Brazilian bum beater. He trains at a gym where there's one star and one potential, maybe we'll see what happens. Maybe we fade her, maybe we don't. He's just, the level of competition isn't there. And I think the way he fights with confidence, he shouldn't be fighting that way. He keeps his hands low. He throws kind of awkward techniques. I know he does have a belt in jiu-jitsu. I just can't confirm what color it is. I think it's got to be up there, either purple, brown, or black. I just can't confirm because I can't fucking see in the pictures. I think it's going to be a stand-up matchup, and I got to go with Ibo. I don't know the durability of Rafael quite yet because, again, he's been biting fucking trash opponents, Brazilian cab drivers here. But with Ibo Aslan, knowing he trains at a better gym, I think he's got the potential, being the younger man, to learn how to move his fucking head. And I think he can get the knockout here. I think it's going to be an evenly matched up fight where both men are landing, but I think eventually Rafael, the lion here, he's going to leave his hands low, exiting the pocket, and Aslan's going to throw a winging punch that's going to crack him and hurt him. So I got to go with Ibo Aslan by second round knockout. I'm not happy about this matchup at all, betting it or predicting it, because literally anything could happen. It could be that Rafael here, who he's an undefeated champion. He wore that shirt saying, "Hey, I'm an undefeated champion, sign me up." There's a reason why they didn't sign him, because he's nearly 35 years old. He's undefeated, and the level of competition isn't there. For Ibo, at the very least, I think he's just fought better competition. So as long as he can push that bully pace on Rafael and just maybe catch him at the end of the exchanges exiting the pocket, I think he can hurt him, knock him out. Next bout, we've got Rinat Fakhretdinov versus, very short notice, Carlos Leal, another lion here. So there's not just one lion, there's two lions. Carlos Leal, I'm going to assume, I don't have odds on it, I'm going to say he's like plus 300. But I don't think he should be that big of a dog. Let me see if I can find the odds officially, because I am very curious how they're lining this one. It really does help. Oh, okay, that's not that bad. He's roughly around plus 160, plus 170. Come back on Renat is going to be like minus 170. So I think the odds are more accurate. I really thought they were going to really assume they were throwing this lion to the wolves in the Gladiator here in Rinat Fakhretdinov. I got to go with Rinat just for a couple reasons, right? I'm going with him by a decision. With Carlos Leal, I think he's worth a shot. I think it's kind of like a dog or pass betting-wise, because he's a strong dude. He's a very good striker, very power puncher. He reminds me a lot of Gleison Tibau, either on roids or not on roids. I'm going to assume on roids. If he's on roids here, he has a way better shot against Rinat here. He has power in the punches. He's a really stocky fire hydrant of a man. He can grapple himself. Rinat, I like Rinat, but when he fights a certain level of competition, maybe in this case here, it seems like a letdown spot. I truly do believe, though, that Renat's going to push a pace and try to tire him out. But when is he going to do that? He is kind of falling in love with stand-up. Like he gets one knockout and he wants to become a knockout artist. And he can do that. He has power in the right hand. Leal, on the other hand, I think he has much more power, especially early. If Leal knows that his gas tank isn't up to snuff to fight a guy like Fakhretdinov, who will grind him out eventually, because that takedown defense will get diminished as the fight goes on, and Leal more than likely will get tired. And it's not like he hasn't been training. He was going to fight some dude. Actually, I found something fascinating about the guy he was going to fight. If I'm remembering correctly, he was training to fight a guy named Erkin Darmenov. He's 13-7, and this guy, if you go and check his Tapology, this guy won a fight via, and let me read this to you. He won versus Thiago Oliveira via ear biting during rear naked choke. This guy was whispering sweet nothings into his opponent's ear and bit his ear. And Erkin got the win there, so I thought that was kind of funny. But the dude has been training. It's going to be pretty close early on. I think there's a chance that Leal can get the win, but with Fakhretdinov, let's be realistic here. All he has to do is get some control time, and they're not going to avoid him getting the victory here. I don't know which picture I'm going to use for Fakhretdinov. Hopefully I'm using the one of him. Hopefully, I'm going to use that one. Fuck it, Johnny used that one. But that's the reason right here. I don't know where. Right here, fuck it. That's the reason why he's going to win. So I'm going to go with Fakhretdinov by a decision here. I think that it's going to be one of those, oh my God, my bet on Leal didn't cash because of robbery, blah, blah, blah. I think it might be one of those. So next bout, Farid Basharat versus Victor Hugo. Now, I'm all about fading Victor Hugo. He is plus 380. The comeback on Farid Basharat is minus 500. But I am very impressed by this 25-4 guy. I initially thought in his first UFC fight against Alektang Haley, I believe, that he was going to gas, but he looked very good. His takedown defense looked good. He was fluid on the feet. The problem is, though, he is fighting Farid Basharat. I do think Farid Basharat is a very good prospect at bantamweight here, but he's minus 500, so he is not playable. The thing about Basharat is that he actually utilizes his feints very well. He doesn't just feint to feint. He uses them well. He throws kicks. He throws a lot of output. He's got good cardio. He's got good wrestling, particularly a good single leg. The guy can mix it up. His grappling is definitely on par with a lot of these black belts in jiu-jitsu. because he's been training with Jake Shields for a lot of time. So Jake is really preparing him with his American jiu-jitsu to defeat the infidels with their inferior Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Victor is a black belt. Victor's a very good striker. And plus 380 is a bit of a stretch. I think it should be maybe a 2-1 for Farid, but I do think Farid is going to implement a very high pace. He's going to smother Victor Hugo. He is going to initiate the grappling just like he did against his last opponent in Taylor Lapilus, who is very difficult to hold down, and he eventually got him down. It is truly the mixture of the wrestling and the striking, because he can beat you in both areas. To me, he is a superior Basharat. His mongoloid older brother with the fucking Pez dispenser head, that guy is just... they don't have the same mentality. Let's go with that. So I will go with Basharat by a decision. I do think if you're going to play him maybe over, I don't think he's going to be able to sub or knock out Victor Hugo. He's not really much of a finisher in that realm, unless it's a guy that really sucks, like that guy Clayton. That was embarrassing. But yeah, I've got Basharat by a decision here. Next bout, we've got Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Chris Beast Boy Barnett. Minus 550 on the African Savage. Kennedy comeback on Chris Barnett is plus 400. There's no way Chris is going to win this fight. There's no way logically, okay? But Kennedy Nzechukwu really makes a lot of illogical choices in the octagon. The guy, I've been saying it for years, like I like this guy a lot. I think as a person, seems like a really nice guy. You know, the way he took care of his mom. He's too nice sometimes. Like, he is the African Savage. I've seen that come out in him. I've seen it when he just kind of has that switch turned on, like, oh, it's time to kill now. African Savage mode time. And he'll destroy his opponents like nobody's business. Like, that's what I do like about Kennedy. It's just, I think the more, unfortunately, the more he goes to church, that killer instinct kind of dies a little bit. So that's my biggest issue with him. He needs to get in the right mindset. He probably needs to see a psychiatrist to just get that killer instinct back. Because in the last two, his last two opponents were just rough. He gets knocked out by Dustin Jacoby being a little too overzealous and trying to finish him early. So I think that kind of put him back onto that, like, ooh, I'm a bit more reserved mindset. And he barely did anything against Ovince St. Preux, who he could have finished at any time. Barnett, though, just too undersized and too overweight for heavyweight. Like, I love Chris Barnett, too. The guy is amazing. Dude will ruin a parlay like nobody's fucking business. So I am rooting for him. But realistically, though, if Kennedy just maintains distance and even avoids the fight, he can win this one just by kicking him down the middle. Like Barnett, he's not going to be able to take him down. I think, if anything, Kennedy will get back on the win track with a finish. In the second round, I think he will kind of put it on Barnett from a distance, kick him to the body, eventually take him down, get on top of him. And again, I should mention, this is Kennedy's weight up in heavyweights. He doesn't have to cut weight. He's going to be much more strong. And I think he's going to be able to take down Beast Boy and kind of ride him and pound him out. Maybe even get a rear naked choke here. But I will go second round TKO for Kennedy. That's the only way I will play him. I won't parlay him. If I am going to bet this guy, I got to take it via inside the distance here. So moving on. Abus Magomedov versus Bruno Ferreira. This one is tough, because depending on who shows up in what round, it could be a stretch here, right? We've got Abus Magomedov. He is currently listed at minus 150, so he is the favorite because he is the somewhat larger middleweight, right? He's taller, he's longer. Bruno Ferreira, the wider guy, much powerful guy, plus 125. Bruno fights like he takes offense going into the second round, like he wants to finish you early. Problem with that is when you're fighting long, kind of sniper-like fighters, strikers that is, you can get hit, you can get dropped, you can get knocked out, which we saw with that giant mongoloid here, Neuralston. Neuralston kind of sucks, though, but he's got a good run going. With Ferreira, here's the thing, both of these guys slow down. Abus is very dynamic early on, and then he does slow down. But if we look at it, he only lost to two guys in the UFC, the former middleweight champion, and to me, Caio Borralho, a guy who is more than likely going to be middleweight champion as well. It's no shame losing to both of these guys. It's just that when you see this guy get his ass whooped and get tired, against Sean Strickland, and being one of the only guys that Sean Strickland won via TKO over, it's a bad look. I do think this guy has a lot of skill. It's just, what developments is he making here, right? Like, he looked like a different fighter against Warlley Alves. He went for takedowns. He tried to prove he wasn't Magomedov. And I thought his grappling looked pretty damn solid. Getting him out on a black belt in jiu-jitsu like Warlley Alves was impressive. It's just that you can kind of bully this guy around, which Warlley essentially did. He bum rushed him a bit, and he looked very much so like, video game physics. Like, he didn't like what he saw, and he was like fucking scarecrowing all over the place. And Bruno can definitely do that. But Bruno himself, I feel like you can diminish his pace, slowing him down, getting some lactic acid in those muscles, and you can kind of snipe him away from distance. Like, he is kind of stubby. He's very short. He's going to have a significant reach disadvantage here. If you're going to play this guy, I think you should obviously take him by knockout. I think he can do so. I think between both of these guys, even if Ferreira does get tired, he can push a pace still and try to get Abus out of there. I think that's the game plan for Ferreira, which is not much of a game plan. He does that every single fight, try to smash his opponents. But I think if Abus can catch him and counter him at a distance, he can snipe him. So to me, it's a really tough matchup for sure, because had one guy had a bet, like if Abus better cardio, I would go with Abus all day. I would just put it up to like, yeah, he got kind of beat up by the pressure of Strickland, but even in those exchanges, he was beating the shit out of Strickland early. And that's when I saw, like, I took Strickland live because I thought he's not getting out of there. Those leg kicks aren't really hurting him as much. He's going to walk him down, and he eventually did. It's just those optics from this guy, fucking trash. And he survived Caio Borralho. I think he's kind of trending in the right direction. Bruno, I'm still not sold on the guy for those reasons. Like, this guy is kind of a mystery to me. If he gets extended past the first round, if Abus tries to grapple with him, maybe not the smartest idea, but if he grapples with him past round number 2, what's going to happen? I'm not a fan of this pick, but I have to go with Abus. I'm going to go with him by knockout in the second round. I think he can just kind of pace himself early. But it really is a tough one for me, so I will take the L with Abus here by second round TKO. I'll move on here. I can never fucking... I'm just Orolbai, right? Myrtlbeck Orolbai versus Mateus Rebecki, plus 210 for Rebecki. Come back on Orolbai, minus 175. I went back and forth on this one as well because I saw value in the underdog in Rebecki, but ultimately I kind of came to the conclusion that who is the cleaner striker, right? Like, I know Rebecki is kind of a meme lord. Like, the guy looks like Haley Joel Osment. The guy is strong. He hits hard, throws a lot into his strikes. He has a nasty amount of physicality. But we saw him fade for the first time because he wasn't able to bum rush his opponents. He wasn't able to just steamroll these guys, and any bit of opposition kind of busted him up there. And with him having such a significant reach disadvantage, I think Orolbai's striking is pretty decent. I think him kind of beating the shit out of Brenner, I really would hope that he goes back with his team and they're like, yo, you don't have to over-wrestle this guy. You were beating him on the feet, and you tired yourself out. But ultimately, I think Orolbai's grappling is just what's going to tire out Rebecki. I think on the feet, he's going to be able to hurt him, at least bust him up. He took a lot of damage his last fight. Not to say that his chin is whack. He didn't necessarily get finished brutally, but it was a lot of damage he took. I think Orolbai is the right side here. I think I will take him by a decision. I think he will keep him at range with his long reach. I think he will push the pace with his wrestling. I think Rebecki will have some good moments early, kind of rushing in, but with the style of Orolbai, kind of clinching up, tiring him out, just getting a hold of him. That's going to be the most fascinating thing to see who is stronger of the two. I think Rebecki is stronger, but for how long? Will that pressure from Orolbai with his relentless grappling eventually tire him out? My guess is yes. I will go with Orolbai by a decision next bout here. Is this the... Yep, it is the prelim main event. We got Jeff Neal versus Rafael dos Anjos. Not too difficult of a prediction for me, right? I got to go with Jeff Neal by knockout. I think Jeff Neal has shed the bed a lot of times. I think especially in his last fight. Not necessarily against Shafkat. Like, Shafkat, he was doing very well. I think his fight with Ian Gary, he just did not pull the trigger. He was not the same guy. And he hasn't been the same guy for a while, but he is still an amazing fighter. He's still at the younger end of his career compared to Rafael dos Anjos, who is what? How old is he? Dear God, he's like 40 by now. I like that Dos Anjos goes back up in welterweight. Like, the guy has always been one of these dudes that, like, he will fight you at any weight, any time. It doesn't matter who it is. You got to respect him, but he is closer to retirement than Geoff Neal is. Geoff Neal hits way too damn hard. He's got nasty left high kicks, brutal speed with that left hand. Nasty. The guy is just, he's too good for Dos Anjos right now. I don't think Dos Anjos is going to be able to take him down. I think this is going to be another fight where Dos Anjos looks good up until he gets knocked out, right? Or he just loses the fight. I got to go with Geoff Neal by second round knockout. He's minus 310. Not much value there. Shit. The durability of Dos Anjos is better at, obviously, welterweight. He's got more poundage to work with, 15 more pounds. But I think Geoff Neal hits way too damn hard for that to not happen. So I'm going to go round number 2, knockout. Next bout, main card opener. We've got Shira Bullet Magomedov versus Armen Petrosyan. So this is tough because if Magomedov, if Shira just throws ridiculous retard kicks that don't land, they're going to give him the victory. It's going to be difficult for him to lose a decision here against Armen Petrosyan. Minus 185 for Magomedov, come back on Superman Armen Petrosyan, plus 155. So the Armenian, I think he's the better overall MMA fighter. He's got automatically better takedowns. He's got better boxing. Shira, what makes him special is his ability to kick for 15 minutes without getting tired. The guy can kick like a motherfucker, but he's shown those wrinkles that just definitely lead you to believe that he's not going to ever make it to like the top 15. With Armen, the issue with Armen is that he came into the UFC with some hype as a guy who can stuff takedowns and keep it on the feet, but he hasn't really shown devastating striking. But what he has shown is very competent kickboxing. And I think this might be a situation where Armen actually mixes in more takedowns. He did it against Christian Leroy Duncan. And I think he can be very successful being the guy who mixes in the MMA aspect to this kickboxing matchup. Because Shira's not going to shoot for a takedown. He's going to try to keep it on the feet. I just don't think he's going to be able to do much significant damage to Armen Petrosyan. I mean, Armen, probably between both of them might be the chinnier guy. It's really hard to knock out a Mongoloid in Shira Bullet. But if this is going to be a kickboxing matchup, I think Armen could win this fight if given the right judges, because I believe that. I'm going to go with him by a decision, but let's be fucking real here. Magomedov's going to win this one regardless. It's going to take Petrosyan knocking him out or submitting him to definitively call him the winner. I'm still picking him to win by a decision because even if he outstrikes him in every round and he still loses, to me, I'm still going to count that as a victory in my moral book because, like, Shira, I think they're trying to feed Petrosyan to Shira Bullet, like, hey, this guy sucks, right? He's on a win-lose type of situation. The guy has fought a lot of grapplers in his day, like Caio Borralho and Petrosyan. I think he's definitely fought the better competition. I've seen those negative signs from Shira Bullet. Regardless, they're still going to give him the decision, but I just really do believe that Armen Petrosyan could keep it on the feet, uses distance better, uses boxing better. Shira's boxing is fucking trashed. He can punch, but he's got no defensive boxing. He just kind of moves around a lot, throws a million kicks. That's what's going to win him that decision, but I'm going to go with Petrosyan, just kind of hoping. I'm looking to place a little bit of money on the guy. Next bout, Magomed Ankalaev versus Alexander Rakic. Rakic is plus 360, plus 320. Come back on Magomedov is minus 410. No bet on Magomedov. Obviously, it's like ridiculous. You probably take him by inside the distance, but although I believe, again, Magomedov's going to win this fight out of spite, I'm going to go with Rakic to win this one by knockout in round number 1. I am giving this one away to myself. I am giving myself a loss. I do believe Magomedov's going to come in here and pussyfoot his way to a victory. He's just too good of an MMA fighter, mixing in wrestling and such. But Rakic, he's been on those like the good Flintstones vitamins, a good combination. The Dino and the Bam Bam together, those fucking get you ripped up, man. He's on the right path, if you know what I'm saying. He looked good against the former champion in Yuri until he kind of got the pressure to him. But the guy, very solid kickboxer. If he lands good low kicks, that's what I'm hoping for. Land those fucking kicks on those baby ankles of Ankalaev. And maybe you could slow him down enough for him to just make some bad, give bad body language. And then they would give you either the knockout in the first one, which you would get, or maybe the decision here. But I do believe Ankalaev's going to win this one. My prediction, though, Ankalaev to get knocked out in the first round. Alexander Rakic, round number 1. Again, just a spite bet because, come on, man, minus 410. It's kind of obvious who people are expecting to win, who the bookies are expecting to win. Rakic just came off of a nasty knockout where he just got bullied by a guy he was beating the shit out of. Come on now. But again, I don't want Ankalaev to get a shot against Ferreira for any fucking reason. Only because the spite. Again, I do think I would pick Ferreira against any guy on the planet. I think he can knock out Ankalaev. Ankalaev has cucked before multiple times, twice to be exact. What's to say he can't do it here against Rakic? So my spiteful pick, Rakic by knockout. Next bout, we've got Lerone Murphy versus Dan Ige. Minus 200 for Lerone Murphy, come back on 50K. Dan Ige, plus 165. I love Dan Ige, but I got to go with Lerone Murphy here. It's not necessarily the youth, but just the speed of Lerone Murphy, right? He's the bigger guy. He's got good boxing. He's been mixing things up. If we look at their tape and we see who fought, what's his name? Edson Barbosa better. Lerone Murphy dominated Edson Barbosa. Ige had issues with Barbosa. And that's my thing with Ige. As much as I respect the man, and if I find out that his wife is pregnant, I'm probably going to put a large sum of money on that plus 165, because when Dan Ige's wife is pregnant, when he knocks her up and then he knocks them out, he is very dangerous. But if Lerone Murphy, who has shown a lot of good fight IQ, he can mix things up. I think he's on his run right now. He's undefeated. He's fought a lot of good he's fought competition that he should have lost to early on. Like they try to put him through the wolves to the ringer, and he each and every time has surpassed those expectations. And now they're giving him Dan Ige. Dan Ige is a tough guy. I respect the fuck out of Dan Ige. I'm gonna never stop watching Dan Ige. The guy is just an animal. I think he's been given the raw end of some decisions in the past, certain fights that I thought that he won. But in this case, I think the speed of Murphy, the boxing of Murphy, the kicks of Murphy, the ability to get the takedowns. I think Dan Ige has great takedown defense, but when you're not expecting it, when you're expecting a striking battle with Lerone Murphy and he shoots for your legs, you get put on your back. Yes, he has great BJJ, but I think the athleticism of Murphy is what's going to carry him to a decision, because ain't nobody knocking out Dan Ige. You're not going to finish Dan Ige. So I've got Lerone Murphy just kind of cruising to a decision here. Next up, we've got the co-main event, Robert Whittaker versus Khamzat Chimaev, plus 185 for the former 185 champion in Robert Whittaker. Comeback on Chimaev is minus 225. Had this been a couple of years ago, minus 1,000 Chimaev. But now we know that the common cold will knock out Chimaev. With Chimaev, my issue is that he is very inactive. He has looked unimpressive at 185 if he doesn't get a finish early. Robert Whittaker, he is kind of a hot and cold kind of fighter. He only loses to the champions and future champions. But do I think that Khamzat's going to be that? And I don't know, man. Khamzat really just has a one good round in him to try to get a finish. And if he can't get it, whether it be by knockout, which I think he can knock out Whittaker, he's got definite power in the hands, ever improving. But the fact that he's getting sick every fucking time and he's near death, I really don't know what's wrong with him. I'm not a fucking doctor, but the fact that his body's not reacting well, the weight misses, man, stuff like that worries me about a guy that's minus 225. Knowing that if he can't get Whittaker out of there in the first or maybe the second, this is a 5-round fight, Whittaker can take over. He's battle-tested. He literally just fought and knocked out the off-brand version of Chimaev in Aleksirov. Aleksirov has a terrible chin, can't defend the uppercut, but still, though, I think that Robert Whittaker keeps it on the feet. He is athletic. It's just play him at your own will. I have to go with Robert Whittaker. I think he can win this one by a decision. I think it's kind of difficult to finish Khamzat, but the fact that Khamzat he just doesn't. He just hasn't been looking good, really. He's just that fight with Usman was a big red flag for me. The fight with Gilbert Burns, another big red flag. Yes, that was at welterweight, but still, the fact that if you kind of stand up to him and you fight this guy and he doesn't dominate you, if he can't dominate you, he has to fight you in an honest fist fight, and you see that his skill set isn't as well-rounded as you think. The fact that he's getting quick knockouts over chinny guys or quick submissions over guys that he's just bigger than, it gives you the impression that he's this unstoppable force, but when you have to fight him honestly, how good is he? His wrestling's fantastic, obviously, but when you got a guy that can stuff the takedowns, a guy who can offensively wrestle you back, a guy that can get you tired in a 5-rounder, those later rounds are going to be a fascinating tale for me to see if Chimaev can really prove that he's elite enough to take on the champs or what the deal is with this guy. So at welterweight, it's a much easier fade for a 5-rounder. Here it's much more difficult because he is going to be a little bit, stronger, more fluid in his body. And again, it's going to be really hard to beat a Muslim fighter, allegedly, Chimaev, in Abu Dhabi. So I am leaning Whittaker as for a science experiment. Like let's test this out for science, but it's a tough one, man. It really is. I'm leaning the dog for those reasons, but everything tells me that Chimaev isn't going to lose this shit. So again, I do think Chimaev has a path to victory by literally just surviving. They were like, oh, winner by split decision, Hamza Chimaev, and still undefeated. And Robert's like, oh, it is what it is, mate. I'm just going to take the L and go with Robert Whittaker. Like, in these situations, I got to go with, my gut. And my gut saying Robert can withstand that ass whooping and keep it on the feet, kind of pick and prod at him, throw those head kicks, win a possible decision. I know I'm contradicting what I said, that no guy here that doesn't end in Av or Ev is going to win a decision in Abu Dhabi, but still, I'd rather take these L's with what I think can happen than just try to be right. You know what I'm saying? I don't need to be perfect. I'd rather be honest. So I'll go with Robert Whittaker by a decision here. Then now, main event of the evening, we've got Ilia Topuria, the newly minted 145 champ, the man who did what Alex couldn't, and that is beat Alexander Volkanovski. They just call him Alex? What Max couldn't do, and beat Alexander Volkanovski. And now he's fighting quite possibly the greatest, if not one of the greatest featherweight champions of all time. If not number one, he's number two. Or number three, depending on where Jose Aldo's at. But minus 250 for Topuria, comeback on Max Holloway plus 195. And we've seen Max Holloway destroy Justin Gaethje, right? And when I say this, I don't say this with disrespect. People say that it is the greatest knockout in UFC history. I don't believe that is the greatest knockout. To this day, I will still stand that it is, as much as I don't really like Buckley, it is Joaquin Buckley over Impa Kasanganay with that spinning back kick to the face that knocked him the fuck out clean. Given the fact that my dude Impa Kasanganay is moved up 2 weight classes and has become a champ in the PFL, it's even more impressive. So I'm not trying to discredit the fact that that's a great knockout, but what I will say is that is the greatest moment in UFC history by far. It doesn't necessarily have to be the knockout, it's just everything around it. UFC 300 for the BMF title, the guy points to the ground, they go at it, he knocks him out with a second left, he folds this dude. And a guy that was the underdog. It's just, you can't get better than that. That alone is just fuck, Max. You're already a Hall of Famer, but now it's you're a fucking legend for that. You were already a legend, but now you're like Babe Ruth. They're going to fucking make a movie about you where some kids are learning MMA and they lose their glove in the neighbor's yard and they have to fight the dog that has the glove that has your signature on it. And then you meet one of the Hispanic kids in the movie and you tell them, hey, brother, it is what it is. Forget the glove. For those who don't know, that's a literal fucking step-by-step plot for The Sandlot, but this is going to be a movie about Max Holloway. That's how much of a legend he is, because legends never die, son. Ilia Topuria, though, is probably going to beat the shit out of Max Holloway at 145. So the issue is, I think Max at 145, he ain't the same Max that you saw at UFC 300 against Justin Gaethje. that is 155 max, and that's why I took Max to beat the fucking shit out of Gaethje, because 155 max is just so much better. He's just faster. He's always going to be faster. He's going to have more power. Not to say he doesn't have power at 145. It's just truly the issue being that at motherfucker, this thing's pissing me off. At 145, Max has to dehydrate himself. He can make the weight. He will make the weight, but he won't be his optimum self. Against Ilia Topuria, a guy, phenomenal boxing, nasty punches to the body, nasty knockout power. The fact that he's uber confident. The guy is not a quitter. And for those of you thinking, yeah, well, he's going to be shorter than Max, and we saw what happened the last time that Ilia fought a taller guy, taller striker. He got hit in the head, got dropped by Herbert the pervert. But what happened afterwards is what was the most impressive thing for me. Like, Ilia doesn't necessarily love to grapple. I think he likes to dominate his opponents because he's such a, he's a bully, he's an asshole, but we love him. But he tried to strike with Herbert early, and he wasn't necessarily wrong to do so, but when he got dropped, he went into wrestling mode because he is a very high-level Greco-Roman wrestler, a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He doesn't show it often. He likes to dominate his foes by knocking them the fuck out because he's got great boxing, hard low kicks. We haven't seen Ilia mix things up because he doesn't necessarily have to, but when he does, he looks phenomenal. He does get touched up a little bit for my liking, but against Holloway, I think he's going to fight him very intelligently. I think he is going to be kicking the legs early. He's going to get him out of tempo because Max needs to be in tempo to really take over. And it's not to say that Max cannot win this fight, but the speed, the power of the younger, hungrier guy. And that's the thing about Ilia. Like, he talks so much shit that he has to back it up. The guy got like a hyperbaric chamber in his house. Like, he's doing everything signed. Like, he is literally doing a Rocky 3, and he is Drago. Like, and I don't know what he's injecting him into himself. Let's just say red wine, because the guy loves to get drunk on red wine and weight cut that way. But at 145, I think he's really going to be hard to beat. I think a lot of people are expecting Max to look good here, and I think he will. I think he's going to make it competitive. But it's, to me, one of two situations here. Like, Max has lost in Abu Dhabi. He lost in Fight Island to Volkanovski in a fight that people thought that he clearly that he won. I actually thought that he won it because I was like at a restaurant trying to watch it on my phone, so I wasn't necessarily scoring it, but it looked as if he won. So I'm not blaming anyone who thought that. But to me, that's kind of like, gives me the impression that if the night full of grapplers is going to dictate the pace of how these judges are going to be scoring, if Ilia decides to start mixing in takedowns, which I fully believe he will, it's going to be a much harder fight for Max, right? At 145, he's going to be a little bit more depleted. He's going to be able to give up these takedowns a little bit easier. I think he's going to be a little slower. He's going to be there to get hit. There's a chance he could even get knocked out. The way Ilia rips to the body and then overhand rights to the head is just Canelo level shit. Max is going to be fast, but not as fast at 145. Max is going to be throwing kicks. He's going to be the longer dude. He's not going to have a reach advantage, surprisingly. They both have a 69-inch reach, perfect number. But to me, I do think that Ilia will defend his title here. I think he has a multitude of ways to win this fight. It's going to take a massive fraud check in my eyes. And it's hard to even say that, because if he loses to Max, it's hard to call that a fraud check because he's a champion. He beat Volkanovski. And what was great about that fight with Volkanovski is, like, when I watch it back in context, right, you see him look good early. Like, he's just stalking him. He has zero fear about what's coming back to him. His nose is getting busted up, and he's kind of letting Volkanovski back into the fight. But in reality, it was just him being patient and him finding his shots. He's like, the moment I land on him, I'm going to knock him out. It's going to be much harder for him to do that against Max Holloway. So I do expect him to be a little bit more cerebral here. He is going to be landing with power. And man, if he knocks out Max Holloway, oh my Lord, the monkey screams that will come out of my fucking mouth are going to be epic. Not because I hate Max. It's just one of those things, another moment. Like, that moment is so unexpected in my brain because Max's coconut head has never been cracked, that it's going to just be like, holy shit, it happened. Like, the first man to do it. It's going to be insane. So to me, as much as I do love Max, I do think the context does matter here. The fact that he's going to be dropping back down to 145, where he has been looking a little less championship material. Like, even there were moments there against the Korean Zombie where he just looked a little flat. Zombie was landing on him hard. Against Arnold Allen, like, he outclassed Allen, but even Allen was rocking him. I don't want to say rocking him, obviously. He was just kind of hitting him with shots that would rock a normal human being. And here with Ilia, if he lands multitudes of that with takedowns, I just don't think he can lose, man. If he mixes in these takedowns, if he mixes things up well, just kind of imposes his will over Max, it could be another one of these Volkanovski versus Max 3 type of fights where he wins every round because he's just not well equipped for fighting these much more powerful, aggressive, well-rounded guys at 145. I think his time at 145 is past him. Not to say he's done. I think at 155, man, this guy, you saw how great he looked at 155. Custom shorts and all. The fact that Ilia's like, they asked him, do you want custom shorts? Like, no, I don't need custom shorts. And that might be his downfall here, but that'd be cool. Some Spaniard shorts. But yeah, I got to go with Max to drop another loss at 145. I've got Ilia Topuria here by a decision here. So those are my thoughts here. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Once again, Johnny from TigerBomb MMA. Halloween Spectacular. I will see you in a few weeks.